Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future Construct podcast. I am your host, Amy Peck. We have an amazing guest today. I'm very excited. We have Michelle Bockman, who is the President of Stanley X. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you guys inviting me to be part of this.
So I definitely want to talk about Stanley X and all the great work you're doing now, but I'd love to hear about your journey through the industry and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I'm a mechanical engineer from the Midwest. I went to an engineering school and I started in manufacturing. So I'm a practitioner. So I really started on the manufacturing floor and sort of made my way up, worked in automotive. So I've also lived in Detroit, and then from there, I kind of played around with 3D printing at that point in time, which is very relevant with today in construction and manufacturing and in the way of the future. From there, I ended up going into and basically spending most of my career at GE. I worked in automation, again, back into the manufacturing floor, connecting machines, getting data from machines, helping customers with insights, automating, using PLC and software to gather data to help customers improve productivity or to improve quality of their products. And I had big customers like Anheuser-Busch, Ford, Mallinckrodt, and some companies like that. And then I got into supply chain at GE and spent many years in supply chain. I ran a plant, I was in sourcing, and then I ended up going into our service organization in healthcare and really love healthcare. Healthcare is all about the purpose of life. So you're saving babies, you're saving human lives through diagnostic imaging equipment at hospitals or at clinics. And then I also spent some time in the pharmaceutical industry. Again, it's all manufacturing, it's equipment, helping customers. And then from there, I actually moved out to California, worked in our digital division and in industrial cybersecurity. So protecting all of those sort of infrastructure, energy grids, manufacturing facilities again. So I have this weave of technology throughout my career in manufacturing. And so from GE, I was recruited over to HP in a startup within the corporation. And so I have a love of startup. So I worked in corporations and I also worked in startups. And so I love that kind of combination of having funding and support, yet being nimble and being able to have autonomy to make decisions quickly for our customers. And so I was in 3D printing at HP. We made industrial 3D printers for manufacturing, for production, series production. And then from there, I had that bug of startup. So I was like, okay, I'm really going to do this startup thing and not have the corporation behind me and supporting the startup feel. So I ended up becoming a CEO of a startup, and it was a workflow software in manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, connecting systems, and again, kind of going back to helping customers get insights to improve the product that they were developing. And then from there, I got a call from Stanley Black Decker, as you know. And actually, Stanley Black Decker, before I go into that, I actually had talked to them 3.5 years ago from today. Like literally 3.5 years ago, I received a call from a recruiter asking if I'd be interested in this new company called Stanley X, as the innovation arm. And I was super interested, and I talked to a bunch of people at Stanley Black Decker, but it just wasn't at the right time. So about 6-7 months ago, I joined Stanley Black Decker, leading Stanley X, the innovation business unit for Stanley Black Decker as president. And I've we're really driving innovation and taking all of that experience of the corporate world and startup and bringing it all together. So we actually will go acquire companies. We will build our own platform, software, hardware. We will invest in startups. We've done that several times. We will develop software through our venture studio and then spin out companies. And so we have all these different ways of being able to get into the industry, really focused in construction technology. So what I've been able to do is take all that manufacturing experience that I talked about and bring it to construction, and I see so much potential there. So hopefully I didn't go on too long, but that gives you.
No, I was completely fascinated. And it's interesting because I found more and more people who have these sort of interesting and varied careers, that when you dig in, there's always this through line, and so you've had a through line throughout the career. And it's interesting now too, that you're bringing the two things that you love, which is, that innovation piece, but being able to also be, part of corporate culture, but then having that startup sensibility. So no, I was wrapped the whole time you're sharing your history. So with Stanley X, so you mentioned that you've done some acquisitions and investments. What are some of the things that you're seeing, or just that you're excited about, kind of leveraging technology and how we can start to, improve outcomes leveraging technology? And 3D printing is a great example as well.
Yeah, 3D printing is super hot in manufacturing and in construction. I think there's quite a ways to go there to really be able to get the high level of quality, get the productivity you need, and at the cost that makes sense. But you got to jump into 3D printing or additive manufacturing. I really feel like you have to do that. What I'm seeing, that like from manufacturing, my experience in manufacturing, I'm not going to tell you how long ago I started, but a long time ago. And it started with just trying to gather information from manufacturing floor. Now I'm seeing that in construction, and people are starting to digitize different steps in the process, trying to connect different groups and different software platforms together and hardware platforms. So I see manufacturing maybe 50 years ago being where construction is or has been recently, and starting to move kind of the same direction. So I see parallels with both industries, and that's where the passion comes out, because I'm like, oh, I see this is like, it's just right there. There's so many things that people have learned in manufacturing that they can bring to construction, and the lessons learned are huge, and the technologies that you can use them both.
That is a fantastic analogy. In fact, I hadn't really thought of that, but now that you mentioned it, that makes total sense. And I feel the same, in the AEC industry in general, that there is, on the one hand, this, all this great technology coming, including, immersive technology, 3D printing, robotics, BIM. That everybody isn't using BIM is a mystery to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but there's some reticence, it seems. You've got forward-thinking companies, but is it, I mean, I guess maybe you learned a lot of those lessons in manufacturing. So was it the same in manufacturing, that it's really down to the workers, that they just, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so it's hard to bring in a new process into a workflow.
Yeah, I think some companies can just totally flip and go there. However, I think most of the industry, you have to take baby steps to get there. And the thing is like, we went through this like 10 years ago, I think it was at GE, like so many people are used to smartphones. They use their smartphone, and then they would go into a big company and be like, why can't I be this nimble in my professional life like I am in my personal life? I'm like, everything's at my fingertips, and why can't we do that in corporate world? And so you got those people who are early adopters and who really want to see that happen. And then you have, a lot of folks who it just takes a little while to get there. And I think you got to take baby steps. You got to make it super easy to bring those technologies and prove. I'm actually from Missouri, so I'm from the show me state. So like, I had to see the proof in the pudding. Like, I really needed to see it before I was like willingly going to say, okay, let's go adopt this new technology. And so I think You got to take those early adopters as examples and use cases and show others, in small, mid-sized, large companies. You got to show examples across the board, because it's always like, well, I'm different. I'm different. We're not like those use cases that you're showing, but that's not true. That's why you have use cases across all different industries or sizes of industries.
I love that. You said something that I want to unravel a little bit about the smartphones, but we're just going to take a brief moment here to hear from our sponsors, and we will come right back. All right, welcome back. And we're with Michelle Bockman, who is the president of Stanley X. You've had such an amazing career. I don't even know where to start next, but I do want to talk about something you said, about sort of our mobile devices kind of driving some of the solutions in the workplace. And I think that's contributing to some of the issues that we're just a lot of this, frontier technology or emerging technology. Like we don't have a utility for it in our personal lives. And so it's hard to introduce it into the workplace. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and especially relative to a lot of the work that you're doing at Stanley X, because you see so many innovative companies.
Yeah. So, when I'm thinking of the smartphone or even like your laptop, when an example would be, so I'm searching for a pair of jeans. And I bought some jeans in the past, but now I want some jeans that, maybe are a little different. But what Google does is advanced Google search will say, hey, we've got your history here. We are going to give you recommendations because we know what you bought in the past or what you searched on before. So I think you can take that, and that makes your life easier. It's like, oh yeah. Or even like Amazon does it. And so there's a company that we spun out years ago called Dado, D-A-D-O, and it's construction management software. And what it does, it syncs all the platforms in a construction environment, and it gets your data from all of those platforms where you can actually go and search. And it's like smart searches. And so it just drives so much productivity. And it does kind of that like, hey, have you're in this area of the drawing, did you know that this is an updated wiring diagram? Or, hey, I'm searching on specifications for this or that, or I have an RFQ. And it's smart, and it uses AI, and it just makes life a lot easier. That's very similar to how we like Google search or Amazon in our everyday life. It uses the same type of technology, and it just drives a lot of productivity. So you're able to integrate all of these cloud platforms together, so you don't have to go to one and then another and then another. It's all integrated. And we actually use it internally at Stanley Black Decker in one of our groups that actually does RFQs. And it's I think it would take someone 3 or 4 days to go through an entire RFQ or RFP, and now it takes just a few hours. So that's the type of productivity that we're talking about with using Dado. And so Dado is a company we spun out, we invested in, and then when I started 7 months ago, I was like, oh, this is really cool. They started getting product market fit. And I love the team. They're amazing. And so I was like, we're going to bring them back into Stanley Black Decker instead of keeping them like a separate startup. And so we've done that over the last few months, and we're continuing to kind of keep them separate so they can scale and continue to get product market fit and be nimble and do the things that a startup does, but still within Stanley Black Decker. And so that's an example of a company we came up with the idea, we spun them out, we invested in them and said, hey, this is a crown jewel, and let's bring it back and continue to fund it. So, but it's very much like a smartphone, it's how you are doing your everyday shopping, or when you're out searching for a new restaurant. because you've been to this type of restaurant, these are recommendations and things like that. So hopefully that gave you a good example of how I think about that.
No, I love that. And that's also such a great position to be in, as Stanley X in the way that you work with startups, because it's very symbiotic, right? And I'm actually a big fan also of corporate venture, because it's sort of, venture with a point of view, and with oftentimes, sort of a built-in product market fit, which is, one of the things that I think, startups struggle with sometimes. It's like, we built the coolest product in the world, but we're not sure if anyone wants it.
Right. And then when do you know you have it? That was like a whole discussion. It's like, are the customers pulling on it yet? Well, maybe, on anything in general. I'm just generalizing, but yeah, product market fit, and the definition of it is like trying to determine when it is happening and when it's not.
Yeah. And are there some other technologies? It sounds like, you're working kind of cross spectrum with many, many different types of technologies. It's hard for me not to ask about immersive technology, but we don't have to go there. We can talk about robotics. We've already talked a little bit about 3D printing, but are there some technologies that you think are really going to be, transformative for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, prefab or offsite construction, whatever you call it, I think is it will continue to be an area that we need to drive productivity and quality, because, unlike production, most series production is high volume, low level of customization. Well, in construction, we know it's a high level of customization and low level of volume. And so how do you kind of take those learnings that I talked about before and bring it forward? So I think robotics is going to be key in that. I think software and workflow and automating and getting information visible, so you actually can see and when materials are going to show up. Where are the materials once they show up? Like, just trying to find them, like, oh, it's the northeast corner of blah 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 and blah blah blah. It sounds like it's simple, but it's just not. Yeah. And so I think and I know that's not like high tech, just finding materials or just being able to monitor your suppliers, but it's real. It's what has to happen. And I don't want to get too far ahead where we're like, we have robots walking around, construction sites, building the sites. But I think we have to take those baby steps with some of these things that we're just talking about.
Well, no, but I'm already there. That's exactly what I want to see. And I want them all to have LiDAR. So we're building the as-built as we're building the building.
Yes.
Which is another thing that I don't understand.
I talked to a ton of startups about that, in seeing their technology is like the progress of on-site construction and being able to capture that and comparing it to as planned, as built, and then the timeline, like, are they behind? Are they, and so I don't know who's going to win that battle, but there's a lot of different technologies out there. And I think in investing in that emerging tech that's out there is going to be key in trying to take some bets and just have a horse in the race.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm a big believer in tying that to sort of triggering payments for contractors, because I guarantee you that will get adopted.
Yes, exactly.
So what are some of the other companies, besides Data, which sounds fascinating, and I'm definitely going to look them up after we speak, but what are some of the other companies that, I know it's hard because, you love all your babies, but are there any that, that have had particular success recently that you'd like to share?
Yeah, ImSuite it didn't come through Stanley X, but we were part of the group who helped kind of do the qualification of their software. But again, I go back to software, and it's off-site construction or prefab, and they're connecting. It's that workflow, but they're connecting BIM and fab in the field. and really driving productivity again and helping with schedule and visibility to where are they within the system, but it's specifically for prefab, but kind of connecting all those dots as well. So M-Suite's another one that I'm pretty bullish on. Another company that we just, my strategy manager who had been at Stanley X since the beginning of Stanley X, he came up with an idea and got funding. And so he just started a startup, and we're an investor, and it's called Nickel. And it's kind of this, it's a software platform again, but it helps GCs and the MEPs for the payments. And so you were talking about payments, which made me kind of think about Nickel, and it's NICKEL. And this is like seed, but they did well in their funding round, and a lot of buzz around this area. So it's kind of fintech as well as construction tech, and it's a software platform that actually helps the teams get paid faster. And that's been a big problem in the industry. So that is a solution that we're very excited to see come to fruition, and they're just getting started.
So that's a perfect name, because nickel, because of the fintech component, and nickel is in, if I had a nickel for every time a company didn't pay our bills on time. So I think it's twofold.
Yeah. Yes, it's really that supplier, GC, MEP. It's just helping with that whole flow, and then hopefully they stay on schedule if they're getting paid.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, I ask one question of everyone towards the end of our discussion, and I'm sure this is something that you think about a lot because it's very futuristic. So if you could project yourself, 20, 25 years into the future, and you could bring with you, any gadget or software or service or just anything that would make you happy on a personal level or just make your life better in some way, what would it be and what would it do?
Okay, so this is kind of old, but not really, because it was in the movies and the series. But I want a Star Trek transporter, and because I travel all the time for personal and for work. So if I can literally be in another country, in another state within a few minutes or seconds, then that's what I would want. So it's kind of that time travel, but the transporter tech is like breaking down matter into living organisms and into that energy pattern. And again, this is a movie, so it's not real, but like breaking it down and then bringing it back and forming into humans. And
I love that.
That's what I would want. It's old because Star Trek's been around forever. I remember watching it when I was like little, like 4 or 5, but I want a transporter.
No, I love that. And I'm right there with you because I'm on planes all the time. And I actually would even go maybe a step further, because I'd kind of like to have, like the holographic versions of myself, be able to go to things where I don't really need to be there in person, but it's kind of good. And then that whole interaction is recorded. And then I get to just sense that I was there, but I didn't physically have to be there. So, but I'm not sure that I want to be the first one in the transporter where they're like, like pulling apart all of our organic matter. I was like, that's a great idea, but you go first.
Right. It's like breaking it down and then bringing it back. It's like, am I going to be the same?
Exactly. Or will you even be aware? I don't know. We're going to go down a rabbit hole here, but I love that idea.
I know, but I'm on planes. I love my time on planes because it's the downtime, and it's good, but I'm so done with airports and just
especially in the summer when it's just total mayhem. But anyway, well, I'm sure I'm going to see you at SFO or Heathrow or somewhere one of these days. But it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Here, thank you. I really, again, appreciate you guys reaching out, and I really enjoyed this and getting to know you all.
Likewise.